see, I've got a cardboard piece here. That's my template. It's cut out to 6 by 9 inches. I've got my fabric laid out here that I'm going to work with. And I've got it, you can see the white edge of the fabric here. I won't be using that. And this is cut off pretty even at the bottom. So I'm going to lay my template here. I got just a Sharpie. It don't have to be exact. I just run a line. And now I've got my template. Take my scissors and I'm going to cut along this line. And then I'll just cut this off over here because I don't need it. Okay. Now let's go in the bedroom and see what we can do. Okay, now we're in my office. As you can see, I've just got my single needle machine set up here. And I've got the fabric that I've cut out. I'm going to take and turn it face to face so that it's wrong side out. Line it up pretty good. It don't have to be perfect. And like I said earlier, I start about right here. So I'm going to go ahead and place my fabric under the foot and just set it down for right now. Now I was telling you I use ribbon. I have ribbon, various colors. I think for this one I'm going to use black, but I've got all kinds of colors here. And I also have this tiny elastic. That's what I think I put on the mask I gave you, Melody. It's elastic that you would use for bracelets, but I don't have a lot of it left. So I have heard many people prefer the ties around the head. And so I have a system set up here according to what I thought was about appropriate. And I just take and I unroll what I need, fold it up here, clip it off. I've been paying $1 a roll for these at the Dollar Tree. So I take my 4 ribbons and I lay them over here at my machine. Okay, now we're ready to sew. I'm about halfway of this piece of material. And I'm going to back and sew to the corner. Make sure my needle's down. And I'm going to turn the corner. Let me trim off my extra thread. My mama taught me to be neat with my strings. Okay. Now, we're ready to put the first ribbon in. What I like to do is just flip it apart. And I'll take the first ribbon. Now, see, I haven't came down at all from the top. So I can raise my foot up and find where I'm at. I don't go all the way up to the needle, but I'm pretty close. I'll leave it stuck out a little bit so when I lay the material back down, you can see about probably 1/4 inch from the corner. I start, I put my foot down, and I'm holding it under there so that I know that it's pretty smooth. I go down, and I like to back up over the top of my ribbon so that I know it's secure, so that if somebody yanks on it a little tight, it ain't going to pull out. And then I go down about over halfway, and then I get down towards the bottom, flip it back up, take my next ribbon. Now, I like to put it in about right here. Lay it back down. Come on down. Go over it. Backwards over it. Come on down. And I like to go about that far past it. You see where the ribbon comes out? I like to leave just a little space past it. Now, make sure your ribbons is out of the way. I'm going to put it over here to where my hole's going to be that I'm going to flip it with shortly. Line my ends up. And this is the fun side, because you can just hammer down all the way across that side. You can feel to make sure that your ribbons aren't in the way. Get over here and make sure your needle's down. And now you're getting to the last side of putting the ribbon in. Now this is the hard side to me because you've only got half an opening to flip it open. But it's still easier to me than using the elastic bands. You take this ribbon, you got to hold your tongue right to get it about where it needs to be and stick it up underneath there. Sometimes people use pins. I like to freehand it and feel with my finger. I've got it in about the right spot. Okay. That's the first one in. Now, got my last ribbon. And I'm going to lay it in here. I try to make sure that they're not sideways or whatever, that they lay pretty straight. That's up a little high. Scoot it on down. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, now we're going to turn. And I'm going to make sure I'm poking in this hole over here to make sure that the excess ribbon is out of the way. And I'm going to come about that far and back it up. And then take it out. Okay, now the hard part is over with. Now what I do is I take and I start flipping through that hole. And turn it right side out. And I've got an old, I yank on the edges, but I've got a, hush lady, I've got an old paintbrush. And I take and I poke my corners to make sure that they're poked. And you can see one's a little longer than the other, it don't matter. Now, what I do then is I come over here to my iron, and it don't take but a minute. Plug it up, and like I said, I've got it on steam iron, but I'm going to play with my seams and make sure that they're all exposed pretty easy. And I lay it across my little table here. I'm not using my ironing board. But I press it flat. And like I said too, the steam iron is another way to sanitize things, I think. Give it a good pressing. Okay. That looks pretty good. Then I come back to my machine. Now, it's easier to me to do it this way. I take a pleat. I don't know if you can see how much I've pleated about like that. And sometimes you have to play with it. that looks about right for the first pleat. I take a pin, and I pin from this direction like that. And I leave a little space. I don't go over to the edge. And I'll show you why here in a minute. And instead of going across, I come on down here because I kind of, in my mind, I want to make sure that it looks right. That I get my pleats even for this side. That looks about right. So I pinch that pleat. You see how much I've taken? Take my pin. And pin that one and leave a little room at the end. Then I come over here to this side. And I like starting at the bottom side of it. And if you pull it, you can see that your pleat's about in the right area. So I'm pinning that one. Leaving a little room at the end there. And then I come up here and I pin this one. If you just pull it tight, you can see that you got it about even distance. Okay, now you're almost done. I start on the long side. And all depending on the thickness of it, sometimes you have to sort of push it along. Now, if you can see, I've only allowed about 1/8 of an inch hem. Needle down and turn. Now this way, with leaving the little distance at the end of your needle, you don't have to take the needle out when you go over your pleats. And I like using my seam ripper to sort of hold it as I'm sewing it. And I like to back up over it a time or two to hold your pleat in place. And go to your bottom side. Well, I need to go one more. Turn. Move your ribbon. Okay, I'm going to clean up my extra thread before I finish off here. Now, the mask is essentially made. Take your pins out. Being that I'm using satin ribbon, I like taking and tying knots in the ends. To me, this is the hardest part. Just make you simple little knots. And I'm going to go back to the press, over here to the iron, now that I've got my knots tied. And I'm going to hit that one more time and it's done. And voila, you have a face mask. Now, a lot of people are telling me, tie the top pretty snug. A lot of people don't tie this until they get ready to go in. And this one doesn't have to be as tight as the top one. And then you have your mask. Then whenever you get ready to take it off, leave the top one tied. Flip it over your head. Next time you go back out, put it on like a hat. Pull it down over and you're ready to go again. Love you. Hope this helps.